Hi there. Thank you for joining me in my YouTube channel. I'm going to be making a wedding card today. My cousin is getting married, so I wanted to do a simple wedding card. I'll show what I'm using later on, but right now there's a big rose that I'm stamping using Memento ink as I'm using Lawn Fawn Jet Black. This is a Concord 9th painted rose stamp set. And I just did the outline, but there's also the insides, which are solid images. This is the leaf solid image, which I'll be using the Altenew Crisp Dye Ink in Greenfield set. It's the lightest one, which is called Frayed Leaf. I'll be stamping that using that one. I'm actually using just the first two, not the third one, as there's only 2 layers. So this first one is Frayed Leaf. I never used these stamps before, so I conditioned it with my microfiber fabric rag. So the second layer, I'm using Forest Glades, lining it up. This is like a painted watercolor, so it doesn't have to be exact. And again, I conditioned it using my microfiber rag. So that's the second layer. Again, Concord 9th painted flowers, stamp set and die. I like that it's a really big image and it takes up almost the whole card. Now I'll be using the first 2 of Altenew Crisp Dye Inks, and I'm using Pink Pearl for the first layer and Coral Bliss for the second layer. I couldn't figure out how this thing is supposed to go on top, so I'm using my the layer the picture of the stamps to find out exactly where it goes. And again, I'm conditioning it. And because this is a large solid image, I'm going to do it twice so that it gets rid of some of the blotchiness. Another way you can get rid of blotchiness or condition your stamps is coating it with Versamark before you put the color on top. So just cleaned it off, dried it, and we'll be putting that away. And now I'm doing the second layer, again in Coral Bliss. I love using Altenew inks because it has, in each set, it has layers 1, 2, 3, 4, different saturation colors. Again, I figured out how to line it up by using the stamp image that came with the stamp set. Conditioning it again and using the Coral Bliss once more. I'm putting it on there. You will see that it looks really harsh, and I'm doing it one more time. But these, because they're dye-based inks, they will absorb into the paper, and as you'll see later on in the video, it softens out. It's really beautiful. All of the things that I'm using will be in the description below. So here it is, all finished, and you can see that it did get softened a little bit. I'll be using the die to cut it out and my Gemini Junior, which I love. And I'm using the frog tape, which is the yellow tape. It's very, very gentle. So cutting that out. And it did get rid of the paint spatter on the outside, but that's fine. That's just the way I want it. So that's ready to go. And I'll be using sentiments from 3 different stamp sets. First, I'm going to be using the Mosaic cover die from Altenew. And I have a Nina 80 pound that I'm going to be cutting out. Sorry for my dog barking. Apologies for that. So I'll be cutting that out again using my Gemini Junior. And this is a very intricate die. And the Gemini Junior is so wonderful. It just cuts it out like butter. And now I'm getting rid of all the insides, poking them all out. I have a little collapsible trash bag that I keep on my counter. And that's what that little aqua little container was underneath. I was going to use my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, but it was clogged. So I'm back to my old faithful Lawn Fawn glue tube. And I'm just going to be putting this onto my, just a cut 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 white Nina 80 pound. And it doesn't have to be totally flat in the middle with those delicate. Okay, this is the happily ever after words, Mr. and Mrs. from Concord 9th Furry Friends. To the from Darling Petals Turnabout, Concord 9th. And the first one was Climbing Clematis from Altenew. Sorry, I don't know flowers that much. And now I just auditioning how I want it, how low it's going to be. At first, I was just going to use this so it's quite close together. I'm using the Gina K Peach Bellini as it really matched the colors that I used. So I'm going to be stamping this using Versamark and white embossing powder. I'm using the grid line on my Misty, but I put the Peach Bellini underneath so I could see the lines. Excuse my head. So using Versamark again, Brutus Monroe Alabaster, and my powder EK Success powder tool so that I don't get any embossing powder where I don't want it. So again, using the Versamark to stamp it. I will stamp it twice, but the second time I stamp it, it shifted a little. So that was a boo. Thumbs down. So just going to flip it over and do it again. And this time, I again, going to do the powder tool to make sure that it doesn't stick. And do it again using Versamark 2 times. So this is the first one and the second one. And then I decided that I'm going to be using the Simon Says Stamp Banner sentiment dies to cut this out. But anyway, first we're going to emboss it. I'm using my industrial Wagner heat gun, which I love. It has 2 settings. I usually use the hot and the high. It's so fast. So that's ready to go. And I'm using the Sentiment Labels die again from Simon Says Stamp. And it's close together because I wasn't going to do this, but I changed my mind. So it still works, but I just have to be careful when I'm using it because as I stamp them really close together. But you'll see me use these banner dies or sentiment label dies to cut them out. And I'm going to cut them shorter by moving it over. And you'll see that soon. So it's not absolutely straight, but it's a handmade card. I know my cousin will appreciate it. So there it is, the Happily Ever After. Sorry, it's out of frame. I'll bring it up in a second. There we go. Now I want to cut the other side, so I'm using the label die, to cut the other side. So just making sure that it's centered. It's easy. You can feel it, that it's centered up. And I'm going to be using my Gemini, which is off screen, to do both of them. And we're almost getting to the end. Thank you for being patient and watching my video. I try to get better and better every time. I hope you enjoy. And again, I appreciate you coming and watching my videos. I would love if you would comment and tell me what else you would like to see. So again, here's my happily ever after to the Mr. and Mrs. Now for my card base, I'm using Nina 110 pound, but I'm going to pop these up using foam tape. I bought this foam tape years and years ago, and I still have a bunch of it. It's super sticky, and I'm just going to be using it to, I'm using my Tim Holtz small scissors, and it does have a Teflon nonstick, but it still gets sticky, so I just clean it off after using rubbing alcohol. But just putting the foam tape over the entire flower, plus I'll put it on my word strips. And I'm auditioning again how I want it. And that seems to work out. There's my little collapsible trash can again. So now I'm going to put the sentiment strips, the foam tape behind the sentiment strips. And this is not going to be mailed, so it's fine that it's a little thick or fat. So the extra one goes on the roll, and let's put this where I think I want it. And the flower, I did take the backing off already, but I didn't adhere it tightly, so it's still, I can still move it. I'm using my T-square ruler to make sure that it's on straight, even though it's not stamped straight, but at least it can go on straight. Now I'm pushing everything down to make sure that it's secured. And the next thing is I'm going to cut the 110 pound Nina cardstock in half. It's 8.5 by 11. So it's going to be a side fold card, and I'm squaring it at 4 1/4. So it's an A2 size card. That white silicone underneath is an Altenew matte, which I really enjoy. I'm cutting off the excess leaves that is hanging over the edge. And I'll be gluing it on using a wet glue. Again, my Lawn Fawn glue tube. I've never had anything warp using that glue tube, so I really enjoy it. I'm using my Score Buddy to make sure that it's lined up nicely. I'm using a Little Things, Lucy's Things beads. It looks really bright, but it's the color of the flower. I'll be using the glue tube again to attach these, and using my Marvi Uchida jewel picker. And I'm just putting a few on there. If you shake that little bead tray, it makes the beads go right side up. So that's pretty handy. I like that. So I'm putting 3 there, 2 on the bottom, and 1 on the top. I should have stopped here, but I decided to add Stella, Wink of Stella. Is that it? Wink of Stella? But I shouldn't have, because it kind of ran a little bit, the jet black Lawn Fawn, because it's good for Copic, but it's not good for water based. So anyway, it did run a little bit. All the items will be listed below in the description. If you purchase these items that are available in my shop, they will be 50% off. Use the coupon code wedding card, exactly as you see there, but it will be in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Mahalo!